This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Liverpool Echo, courtesy of the Blood Red channel. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. The homecoming is almost here. 10,000 Reds to return to Anfield as Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool look to soar past the Eagles and into next season's Champions League. A late dash for the line. Can Liverpool now see the job through? We'll be reacting to Jurgen Klopp's press conference, previewing the action and bringing you our team selector and match predictions. To get into that, we've gone big for the final Blood Red podcast. Before the season's conclusion, we've the Liverpool Echo's Liverpool correspondent from his attic to Anfield this season, Paul Gorst, Joe Rimmer and David Lynch here as well. And hope you're all well, guys. Gorsty, I'll come to you first up. And, well, it is all now about, as Jurgen Klopp's been dubbing it, the final.
It is. I mean, it's not the first time Liverpool have had to win on the last day of the season, is it, to secure a place in the Champions League? And Jurgen Klopp's been keen to stress the point that almost in every season that he's been here at the club, that they've always had something to fight for, whether it be a Europa League final, a Champions League final, or three games on the last day of the season where they've needed to win. So it's something that they're used to, apart from last season, of course, when they won it with 7 games to play. So it's a bit of a pressure situation, but not a new one for them, not a new experience. So he thinks that all they've got to do is focus on themselves, drown out any noise from Leicester or Chelsea, and just go and finish the job that they've started. I mean, it's incredible that they're in this position when you think of how bleak it looked in March. That 1-0 defeat to Fulham really did look like, where did Liverpool go from here, and how low could they actually finish? And I think with 9 games to go, they were 10 points behind Leicester, were they, with 9 goals. The Leicester's goal difference was 9 better than you think of them going into Sunday now. Knowing a win secures them a place in the top 4. It's just been a really stirring finish to the season, and you think how much better would Liverpool's prospects be if you'd have been in this kind of form for a little bit longer, or even if a couple of results that, I'm thinking about the draw at Brighton late on with the penalty, the couple of late goals conceded against Leeds and Newcastle. Of course, it's all shoulda, woulda, couldas, but Liverpool's season would have been much different had a few small things knock on against them and a few massive things, which are obviously the injury problems. So, all in all Liverpool need to do now is beat Palace, finish in the top 4, and then we'll say no more about this dreadful season.
Certainly. Aye, Joe Rimmer. Nice to see you back on the podcast, my friend. In terms of nerves, I know for a long while this season you were quite happy to kind of write off Liverpool's top 4 chances, but they've brought themselves back now, haven't they? And given themselves a real good go.
Yeah, fair play to them. I honestly thought the damage had been well and truly done. But they've put the sort of run together that I just didn't think that they'd shown they were capable of this season. It would be nice if Liverpool did things the easy way for a change, but it wouldn't be Liverpool if you're not leaving it late on the final day and all that. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you have to give the players a lot of credit because they've shown a lot of guts to get through this period. Because let's not forget, even this last sort of, what was it? Someone said to Klopp, he's got 23 points out of 27 available, was it? Something like that. But, that even during that spell, there's been some damaging setbacks, late equaliser at Leeds, late equaliser at Anfield against Newcastle. And they must have hurt the players, they felt like defeats and, they've just got on and carried on and they've come through some tricky games. And they're the sort of games that have been catching Liverpool out this season. So I think it's been a really gutsy run. And I think it's the sort of run that just gives you a bit of confidence back that, it is the same team that, ran Man City so close season before last, won the title last season. They still have those guts. They still are those mentality giants that Klopp talks about. So, and people have stepped up to be counted. We've said a hell of a lot about Nat Phillips and, whatever he does from this summer onwards, Liverpool fans will have, great memories of him. And hopefully, I hope he sticks around at Liverpool. But he's done really, really well. And then Reece Williams, I think, has been superb in recent weeks, really stepped up. It's been a real breakout season for him and fair play to him. But they're not the only ones, all across the pitch. People talk about Mane being in poor form, but he's just stuck at it and, created a goal on Wednesday night. So fair play to them. They really have gutted it out. So, I think they deserve Champions League qualification. I think this all these players should be in the Champions League, and hopefully they can finish the job on Sunday.
Yes, 7 wins in the last 9, Lynch. I don't think many of us saw that coming. Certainly not after the defeat to Fulham.
Yeah, I think on a few of these podcasts, and I think I've said it a few times, is that after every little setback, it was almost like, well, I don't know really why we're expecting more. This team's proven time and time again this season that with the problems they've got, obviously those injuries they've had, that it's not a very good Liverpool team. And I know I've said that before, and then I think over the last few games have just completely proven me wrong. Not necessarily, obviously, we're not saying it's a title challenging Liverpool team or they're showing unbelievable quality, but just the sheer grit has been so impressive. Performances coming from players you didn't think had it in them. Obviously Joe there mentions that the 2 centre halves, they've just been incredible, haven't they? For 2 players who you don't really expect to reap the rewards of getting into Champions League if Liverpool do it. You wouldn't think either of them would really, in normal circumstances, play a minute of that competition next season. And yet they just seem utterly determined to drag Liverpool over the line. I think the manager, the way he's gone about mitigating for that slight weakness there at centre half and making sure the spine of the team's strong. Trent Alexander-Arnold, we talk about him being captain material, don't we, in the future? And I think his performances in recent weeks in terms of just dragging Liverpool over the line, he's been absolutely key to that. And another player I really want to mention actually is Thiago, someone who I've been critical of his performances this season. We know he's a better player than he showed in the early part of the season, but he has been as key as anyone. Particularly, I think these last 3 games have been his best in the Liverpool shirt. Just both sides of the ball, phenomenal. We know his quality in possession, but he seems to have just sped things up a little bit. So he doesn't seem to be getting caught on the ball quite as much, and he's showing all his quality there. And then on the other side of the ball, not getting caught as much on the wrong side, not picking up those silly yellow cards. He's just been an ideal midfielder in a Liverpool midfield under Jurgen Klopp, really. So. So many great performances these last few games, and I think it's got to the point where you can say, and I don't think you would have said this a few weeks ago, is that if Liverpool do end up in 4th, they have deserved it because this run has been worthy of sneaking in there. I know they've been reliant on a few other results, but to put together that run, given everything that's gone before and the opportunities they had to put their head down and just say this isn't our season, I just think remarkable effort, and you just hope they can get over the line now because they do fully deserve that reward.
Yeah, I'm glad Dave mentions a few of the individuals there because that was one of the things I wanted to talk about actually. Gorst, you've obviously had a chance to see Liverpool up close and personal throughout the course of the season. Who have your sort of main characters of the season for Liverpool been? And I've said recently Nat Phillips will probably be the cult hero of the season for Liverpool, but so many of the different individuals at differing times have had to step forward and be counted. Yeah,
well, you look at Mohamed Salah with his 31 goals and you think, where would Liverpool be without those? So he's probably the stand-up man, isn't he? And it's a strange one, really, because you think he scored 31 and there's not a particular game or performance or even a goal that kind of sticks out. It's all just kind of ticked along nicely, seemingly all season. And he's kept Liverpool in the hunt, hasn't he, with those goals? I think he's level with Harry Kane in the Premier League Golden Boot race with 21, is it? 22? So he's definitely up there. Also Fabinho, whether he's played at centre-back or as a defensive midfielder, he's been exceptional. And I think moving him into that defensive midfield role was the catalyst for this run. Liverpool have won 7 of the last 9. They're on a 9-game unbeaten run. Obviously, the draws with Newcastle and Leeds came when he was at centre-back rather than in midfield. So he's been superb all season. He obviously had that month or so out with a hamstring injury, I think, but it wouldn't be a Liverpool season without some sort of defensive injury. So he's been excellent, and probably in recent weeks I'd have to say Trent, certainly since March time. Funnily enough, since the return of football from the last international break, he just seems to have had the bit between his teeth. I thought he had an off night against Real Madrid away, but so did pretty much everyone else. But other than that, I thought he's been excellent. Real Madrid at home, he was superb. Arsenal away, it was an incredible performance, really. And I thought he was really good against West Brom, and he was good the other night. And he just seems to be putting it together at the right time, really. So I'd probably say those 3. And as Lynchy says, Thiago's really just starting to come into form now, isn't he? So let's hope that Jurgen Klopp is right in his assessment that the likes of Matip, Van Dijk and Gomez are back for pre-season, and then once Thiago plays with some of the players, if he thought he was signing to play alongside, then we can see this kind of form on a more prolonged basis.
Just to come in there on the Salah point, I really should have mentioned him in terms of people who've been outstanding this season. But I thought one of the things that I really admired in his last performance as well was that he went into that game knowing that he had an opportunity there to get ahead of Harry Kane in the goal scoring ranks, didn't he, ahead of the last game of the season. And I just don't think you could see that at all in his play. Just not selfish at all. Just, all that running that he does to protect his fullback and all that, and making sensible decisions in the final third. I think it's not something you necessarily associate Salah with, and people talk about him like he's a selfish player, but I think his performances in recent weeks have been completely unselfish, and he, is not just thinking about ensuring he gets a golden boot so that he can get his big move or anything like that in the summer. I think you saw in his celebration at West Brom, the Alisson goal as well. I think he just looks like someone who's completely committed to getting Liverpool in the Champions League, because that's where he wants to be, and he wants to be there with this club. So that's something that's maybe worth pointing out is stood out in recent weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on Trent, Joe, he's kind of personified Liverpool's season, hasn't he? His own season, the fact that at the beginning of the season he couldn't quite get firing on all cylinders, inconsistent performances, you didn't really know what to expect. But as the finish line has come into sight, he's really come on strong and helped haul Liverpool over the line, much like, obviously, for so many years, Steven Gerrard did.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you've seen... all the players we've mentioned just then, I think you've seen their personalities really come through, their passion and their drive. And, I think Trent's reaction when Alisson scored, I know they all sort of celebrated quite wildly, but there was something about Trent that I just spotted that I thought the relief, the sheer emotion with Trent, I think was there for all to see. And look, I think he's faced some ridiculously unfair criticism this season, Trent. The England thing was perhaps blown out of proportion. Whether he does go with England or not, I don't know. But, I think, on his day, he's superb. And I don't think he's been anywhere near as poor as people have made out at times this season. Yes, he struggled. But, look through that Liverpool team and find me a player who hasn't struggled at times this season. And you're taking Trent's position is directly affected by the two guys alongside him, which is chopped and changed. We've seen so many injuries there. So to keep some of the standards that he has kept, I think is extraordinary. And I think we should be praising him for that this season and not sitting here criticising, because, I don't know any fullback in the world who wouldn't be affected by having Van Dijk missing. Then you add Gomez, then you add Matip. You bring in a new centre-half in Kabak and two young players. Trent's a young player himself, and he's having to play alongside players with far more inexperience. So I think, that this season for Trent has, some of the criticism has been wild, and fair play to him. He's come through at the end there, and he's really, really showing his form. And England will be daft not to take him, but Liverpool will be beneficiaries, and he'll be a big player for Liverpool next season, I've no doubt. And just to pick up on a couple of things the lads said, Thiago, again, I think Thiago's personality is really starting to show. I thought at West Brom, he took control of the game and really kept Liverpool on the front foot and kept the pressure on West Brom right to the very end, and, was getting into shooting positions. I think he's such a lovely striker of the ball. I'd like to see him score a few more goals. Thiago, I think he can get into those positions, and, there was one or two deflections, a good save, wasn't there, from the goalkeeper? But, I think Thiago really, really starting to stamp his authority on Liverpool in the last few weeks. And Salah, what can you say about Salah? Lynchy just nailed it in terms of, the sort of performance he had on Wednesday night. But there's this misconception that Salah's selfish. I don't think you can be selfish to play in this Liverpool team and to achieve the things that they've achieved in the last few years. Salah works as hard as anyone. He's just a goal scorer extraordinaire. And you look across any goal scorers, they're all selfish in their own right. Harry Kane shoots more than anyone. If you watch Harry Kane, especially a couple of years back, he would shoot from everywhere. And Salah's not one of those that takes a lot of shots, but when he gets in front of goal, he doesn't always look up and pass. And that's fair enough, isn't it? His goal record speaks for itself. So, he's one that's really, really kept his standards. Probably what I said before, he's the only player really that has just been at his best the entire season. I think Salah's been great. So fair play to them. Fair play to them.
Yeah, I might be wrong, but I don't think Mo Salah either has ever come out and tried to claim goals quite vociferously as Harry Kane does. But anyway,
we can tell you support there, Guy.
Yeah, exactly. We've spoken about which players have been key for Liverpool during this run-in, but Gorst, just in terms of if Liverpool do see this through then and get it over the line, how big an achievement will it be? Because I think if we spoke at the beginning of the season and said it would take till Liverpool the final day of the season to reach Champions League qualification, we all would have thought, well, why has that happened? But the way in which they have come back to get this does feel as though it's something special that they are on the verge of achieving.
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to the start of the season in September, and if someone tells you that Liverpool are going to be going into the last game of the season, looking to wrap up fourth, you'd kind of think, well, what's gone wrong? Well, what has gone wrong is pretty much every defender that they've had has pulled up lame, haven't they? From the world's best defender in Van Dijk to Joe Gomez a few weeks later. Joel Matip, I think he only made 11 appearances this season before his season was finally called time on in January. Even Kabak and Ben Davis, the lads who were brought in to ease the crisis, have only added to it in recent weeks. So Liverpool are going into this with Nat Phillips and Reece Williams. And let's face it, the players who some fans might have even heard of, as recently as September. Particularly in the case of Williams, who only made his debut in September against Lincoln, I think it was in the League Cup. Phillips obviously played in that FA Cup game against Everton, but Liverpool are going into it with those two at the back, and they need to win to finish in the top four. So I wouldn't be putting it. It's not the same as winning the Champions League or winning the Premier League or anything, but given the hurdles that have been in Liverpool's way this season, so many injury problems, and I think sometimes it gets a bit glossed over in terms of outside of the Liverpool bubble. Like, we know, don't we, that it's three centre-backs, and Jota was out for 3 months, and Henderson's been out since February, and Fabinho was out for a month, Alexander-Arnold. Pretty much everyone's had an injury this season except for Wijnaldum, Robertson and Firmino. Even Alisson's missed a few games, hasn't he? So pretty much everywhere you look in this Liverpool squad have missed, a quite significant chunk of games. And the fact that they're still in the hunt for a place in the top four speaks volumes about the character and the mentality of the squad. And at times that hasn't always been there this season, particularly with the 6 games lost at Anfield. Looking at 3 or 4 of those as games that they normally would be winning. But as Joe says, fair play to them. They've peaked at the right time, and now it looks as though they're going to finish off the job. So it's been an exceptional achievement, really, when you think of what has been placed in front of them.
Can I just come in there and just say, like Gorsty says, I think Liverpool's injury problems, and I know we've spoken about them on every podcast and people might be sick of hearing about it, but they have been glossed over. Reece Williams is a good example. I just checked them when you were talking, Paul. He's made 18 appearances for Liverpool this season. And you think about, during the United game, Gary Neville on commentary made a song and dance about Harry Maguire not being available. Yeah. And I was thinking, imagine if I've just had a little look to see who United's perhaps Reece Williams equivalent is. Has anyone ever heard of William Fish? Have you ever heard of him?
From games, yeah.
So he's an 18-year-old centre-back. Imagine if United had played with him and he'd made 18
like a fish out of water.
Well, there you go. Say you on that. I might have picked him because he had an interesting name, but in general, I think the point stands is that, can you imagine if United had Bally, Lindelof, Maguire, Phil Jones, all of these players out injured, and they were dealing with that sort of issue, and then they brought in someone on loan in January, and he went out injured for the last 5 or so games of the season. It's quite extraordinary, and I don't quite think that anyone outside of the Liverpool bubble realises what Liverpool have dealt with this season. But to get through and to get into the Champions League, it's a pretty good achievement, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. So if they do it, all credit to them, because it has been a real tough season.
And I'm just looking at the Premier League table here as well, and the only teams so Liverpool have conceded 42 this season as well, and the only teams who've conceded fewer goals are Manchester City, Chelsea. Oh, there you go. Manchester City, Chelsea, and Arsenal, I think, are the only teams who've conceded fewer goals. Which is, considering, like you say, if somebody at the start of the season told you Reece Williams was going to make 18 appearances this season for Liverpool, you'd been like, what's gone wrong there? How is that happening? And I think that just is testament not only to the young lads who've come in and taken the chance so well, but also the manager just for creating an environment where, you know, that weakness or potential weakness has just not been, you know, teams haven't been able to consistently expose it. I just think it's an incredible achievement from Klopp and the players really to get to this point. And you maybe will get a little bit of stick if you say that, and it's top 4 a trophy these days, and look what Liverpool are celebrating now after what they've done in recent years, But that is just nonsense, because in the real world, where you have to put a team together, you have to put a team on the pitch, and sometimes they're tired and they're playing too many games in a week, and all these other challenges and the people, and they've got other worries in their lives and things like that. When you have to compete with these things and create a winning machine, the fact that Jurgen Klopp's done that to a sufficient level to get them in fourth, it's just remarkable, I think.
Yeah, fair play. Right, in terms of Jurgen Klopp, then he's been speaking in his pre-match press conference ahead of the Crystal Palace game, Gorsty, and a fair bit of the concentration of what he was asked about was about Jorginho Wijnaldum. We've known all season that his contract is ticking towards an end. He was asked, is this going to be the swan song, the finale for Gini Wijnaldum? But didn't really get a straight answer, did we?
We didn't know, but you look at it now, 21st of May. I think his contract is up in June. Don't need to be a particularly skilled artist to join the dots on that one, do you? It's looking like this is going to be his final game for Liverpool, and probably one where he's going to captain the club. With Henderson out, Van Dijk and Milner might not be starting, so he's going to give us all right until the very end. I didn't think he was at his best at Burnley, but he's been an absolute Iron Man for Liverpool this season. I don't think anyone has played more than him. I haven't checked it, but I know he's certainly up there with maybe him and Robertson. And he hasn't let them down again, has he? He's been superb. And there's been times when you've watched him and you're thinking, why are Liverpool? Why have they got to this point? He's still such a vital part of the team. Why are they allowing themselves to get to this position where he's weeks away from leaving the club and he can speak to whoever he wants, and it appears as though Bayern Munich are getting a mention at the moment, doesn't it? It'd be a shame to see him go, and I think it's going to cost Liverpool 30 million plus to replace him, because he's that important and he's that good, and it'd be a shame to see him go, because when he leaves this club, he's going to look back. He'll look back on Gini Wijnaldum, and he was almost at the first Klopp signing, wasn't he? That summer, 2016. Just being a hero for this football club and what they've won over the last 2 years or so. He's been vital to it, so he'll leave with all the goodwill in the world and a massive pat on the back.
Yeah, and he's been heavily underrated at times. I know around the turn of the calendar year, Joe, I was sort of thinking to myself, pulling my hair, what left of it I have out, thinking...
I was going to say, what hair?
Get on the side.
Can you get hold of that?
Yeah, just about. I was thinking to myself, well, why are Liverpool allowing this player to walk out? But now, as you said before, with Thiago coming into the side as he has and Curtis Jones getting fit again, it feels as though it is now part of that evolution. You can see what the thinking is there. And albeit he's been a fantastic player for Liverpool, maybe it is, rather than hand out a big contract, time for all parties to move on and have a parting of the ways.
Yeah, on the surface, it feels like a real crying shame that he's going to leave the club. Like Gorst, he's just said, I think he's been an absolutely brilliant servant for Liverpool. He's been a huge, huge part of what they've done well, and Liverpool fans will love him. And I'm really glad for him that there's 10,000 people there to give him a proper send off, because he deserves it. But Liverpool tend to get these decisions right, don't they? Emre Can, they held out, didn't they? And Chan's gone on, and he's not done badly at Dortmund now. He is, but I don't think Liverpool will ever regret losing him. And when they've had to sell players like selling Coutinho, they've got it right. So I think you just have to trust in what they've done, previously, and the people there, Michael Edwards, Jurgen Klopp, and trust that they're making this decision and they're getting it right. And it's a difficult one, but yeah, I think when they started the season, I think the only game I think they played in was the derby, when it was Henderson, Thiago, and Fabinho. I think once Thiago came in, I suspect that Klopp thought that would be his midfield for the majority of the season. We obviously know that hasn't worked out for different reasons, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're all fit, that is the midfield that starts next season. And with Curtis Jones coming in, because he's had a breakout year, He hasn't played as much in the last sort of third of the season, but for the first 2/3 of the season, he was superb. So, and whether they go out and sign someone as well, just to strengthen that area more, Liverpool will still have options. But yeah, I mean, it does seem a strange one. And I think from the outside looking in, you do wonder why it is they couldn't agree a contract. But I'm sure there are various reasons. And we just have to trust Liverpool. They've got this one right.
Yeah, certainly maximised that final year of having him, haven't they, Dave, in terms of how many minutes he's got through with all the injuries elsewhere in the squad. And you wonder on the training ground what influence he may well have had on a player like Curtis Jones, who this season seems to have changed his game a lot in terms of fitting into that Jurgen Klopp midfield three.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been at his absolute best this season, I think it's fair to say. But, he's still been... he still gives you a certain level of consistency, and the fact that he just can get on the pitch every week has been absolutely huge in a season where there's been so much chopping and changing in other parts of the pitch. We maybe didn't mention him because he hasn't been performing at the highest level he possibly could. As one of those players, where would Liverpool be without him? But I actually think this season they would have, if he hadn't been available as well and had any sort of injuries, then they would have really been in trouble in terms of in that midfield area at times. So. Yeah, he's going to be a big miss, and I think it's been interesting, hasn't it, to see how he's been used by Jurgen Klopp since he signed. Because coming in from Newcastle, he was that sort of number 10 position, scoring goals constantly, and I don't think anyone really expected him to come in and play the role he has. But he's just such an intelligent footballer, and I think there was a moment in the game at Burnley actually where I think we just summed him up, and it sort of got to me just because I'd seen a tweet earlier in the day that sort of said it lined up Wijnaldum's statistics against, say, Naby Keita, and said, look, he's not very good at this, and this. And I think there was a moment in the Burnley game. So Robertson, he wins the ball at the back and it starts to charge out of defence, and his touch is a little heavy, and you can see that the Burnley player, as soon as Wijnaldum sees that the touch is heavy and there's a chance the Burnley player wins the ball, he's already sprinting to the left-back position to fill in. And as it happened, the Burnley player won the ball and played it out to that side, and Wijnaldum was already there, willing to fill in. Now, there's not a statistic that will ever tell you that, but it just highlights to me how smart a footballer and why he's been so important in this Liverpool team in terms of just filling gaps and keeping things sensible. He may not be the flashiest with the ball and his passing. He can't play the passes that even Henderson can play, and certainly Thiago can play, but he's just been that model of consistency and sensible play in a team that is all action at times. And I think Liverpool, big decision to make over whether they replace him, because I know obviously the plan was originally, wasn't it, to maybe go into this season and use Fabinho at the back more, well, occasionally if needed, to give him games and go with that 3 centre-half. But I would argue that if they are going to sign a centre-half, they probably do need a midfielder as well, because I think with some of the injury problems they've had in that position, and you're losing someone as reliable as Wijnaldum, that they probably do need to get someone in who's got a really strong fitness record, because players like that are just invaluable. And even if it is the right time for Wijnaldum to move on, then you will certainly, of all the qualities, you'll miss his availability.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's one player who looks set to be leaving Liverpool. Now on to one who could well just be getting started after his loan spell from Schalke, and that's Ozan Kabak. Gorst, he's been speaking with the Times, and he said, albeit he's not spoken directly with Jurgen Klopp about whether the move will be turned permanent, there is that clause in the loan deal. He's really hoping it will be.
Yeah, he seems desperate to stay by everything that you read today, and why wouldn't he? I mean, Schalke have just been relegated. They're in absolutely dire straits, both financially and on the pitch. And he's had a Liverpool team who are threatening to challenge for the Premier League title next season once everyone's back, present and accounted for. So you can understand why he's keen to stay. He's turned 21 in March. He's an experienced player for his young age. Obviously played for a huge club in Turkey, in Galatasaray, and a massive one in Germany, in Schalke, despite the recent problems. So he's got plenty of experience of handling the kind of expectations around the big club, but obviously not many bigger than that than Liverpool. But I think it might be a bit too soon to judge him, and he might be a little bit hamstrung that he will be judged by playing alongside players who aren't going to be playing much next season when everyone is back, as I say. So difficult one for everyone to make an assessment of. I think if he was 2021 coming out the Liverpool academy, you'd be looking at him and thinking Liverpool have got a good one here. This lad's going to be, do something. But are they going to be paying 18 million for that? From what we've seen so far, I'm not too sure, because finances aren't exactly going to be awash this summer for any club really, and Liverpool no exception. So I think Liverpool are going to be looking for a big kind of statement senior centre back this summer. I think we know that by now, don't we? And I'm not sure whether Kabak is that. I think the only way I see him staying now is if they can really haggle the arm off Schalke and get them down to maybe half of what the 18 million asking price is at the moment. I asked Jurgen Klopp about this in his press conference. I'm not sure what I can say because it's a 10-30 embargo, but he was full of praise for Kabak and kind of talked up his personality and how well he's handled being at the club. But it's a decision that Liverpool are going to have to look at over the next week or two, seriously, I'd imagine.
Is it one of those as well, Joe, with Nat Phillips and just how well he's come on? £18 million could be spent elsewhere.
Perhaps so. It's Kabak's a really difficult one, and I think he's going to give Liverpool a really hard decision this summer, just in the sense that 18 million sounds like a lot, but we all know in this market it's not a great deal for a 21-year-old centre half. And at 21, how many other centre halves are there in Europe that are playing quite as well as him? I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think. Paul says whether they can haggle it down. If they could get it down further from that, then I think it would almost have to be a no-brainer. Because even if Liverpool bought him, they'd probably be able to sell him on for more than that. So it's difficult. I think he's probably got a higher ceiling than Phillips and perhaps Reece Williams. So, Phillips is one who, I can't praise the guy high enough, but I think he's earned himself a good move now. I think Premier League club or a higher Championship club would probably be looking at him. Reece Williams probably can go out on a decent loan. He was at Kidderminster, wasn't he, a couple of seasons back, but he could probably be looking at the Championship, League One. So Kabak, I don't know. Obviously it's a hard time, and Liverpool aren't made of money at the moment, so the 18 million perhaps is a great deal to them right now, but it feels like one where if you bought him, you couldn't go wrong, because you'd either get decent money back for him, or you've got a 21-year-old who's got a lot of experience as one of your options. So I don't know. I suspect that they won't keep him, just because the sort of vibe you feel like you're getting and what you're reading. It looks like they're going to target one centre half and perhaps a bit of a high profile one, but I think he's a good young player, and at 18 million, it's a decent price.
What do you make of it, Lynchy?
I think just with Ibrahim Konate and the links there, and I think Liverpool are making absolutely no secret of the fact that there's interest there, and I think when they do that, when they're being that open about having some interest in a player, I think it's maybe further along than further down the line than they would maybe let on to us at times. So I think certainly if they get in the top four, I think there's all that talk about the fact that you would have to pay the release clause in a lump sum, but I think Champions League football will be able to guarantee them to do that, particularly with this Redbird investment that's come in recently as well. I think Liverpool know where they're up to financially and know that that they could get Ibrahim Konate and do that deal. In personal terms, don't seem like they'd be an issue. I think those are already pretty much sorted. So I think with the fact that they know they're going to do that deal, or think that they should be able to do that deal with Champions League football, it just puts Kabak in too difficult a situation. They know that he'll need minutes to develop in the same way that Konate will. But if you're going to do one deal, then you can't necessarily give Kabak the minutes he needs to reach the level you want at Liverpool. So I think that's possibly going to cost him a move. I think I agree that Phillips, he's at an age where he will move on. So I think. And Williams obviously has been pushed into the first team quicker than he would have liked, so a loan for him, I totally agree that's the plan. But I think you could make an argument about 5 centre backs, but I just don't think that's Jurgen Klopp's style to sort of hoard players in a certain position. So I think maybe I think that the idea that they're so keen on Konate and Kabak wasn't, to be honest, a player they were massively keen on signing at the time, which is why the deal is made up in the way it is. I think his future lies away from Anfield, to be honest.
Yeah, certainly. We'll have to wait and see how that one does play out. Before we get on to our team selector and look ahead to Crystal Palace, Gorsty, one other bit of news to catch up on from the last week is the announcement of the new supporters board that Liverpool confirmed yesterday, and the role, obviously, following the fallout from the Super League, that fans will have in terms of decision-making now at Anfield.
Yeah, it's pretty progressive step forward, isn't it? Liverpool have obviously been in talks with Spirita Shankly for best part of a month, really, since the whole Super League debacle came and went within those 2 crazy days. So it looks like it's going to be, a good thing going forward. I'm not too sure whether we'll hear much about it. And I imagine if we ever do, then something's probably gone wrong, hasn't it? Because that means that Spirita Shankly have been consulted by Liverpool on a certain decision, and they've kind of laid out the lay of the land as far as the fans are concerned, and Liverpool have ridden roughshod over it again. I think that is probably the only time that we might hear about this particular agreement or partnership, or however you want to phrase it. What I thought was interesting as well was Fenway Sports Group have accepted the need to stump up for any Super League financial sanctions that come Liverpool's way, and I think that's only fair and right, isn't it, given that this wasn't a decision made from the football operations side of the club or, certain people in the club. This was essentially an ownership call that everyone vehemently disagreed with and left quite a lot of employees disillusioned and angry, to be honest. So, yeah, it's a good step forward. I think they're going to meet maybe once or twice a year to kind of see what the agendas are and what's going to be coming forward. But, yeah, it is good news, but I'm just not sure how much we'll hear about it going forward.
No, definitely. Right. We will keep an eye on that. And if, obviously, as you say, Gorst, if anything comes more around, it will be, of course, covered across on the Liverpool Echo website. Let's get into then the final day of the season. Crystal Palace coming to Anfield. 10,000 fans at Anfield. Roy Hodgson's finale, his send-off farewell as Crystal Palace manager. I'm sure there won't be a dry eye in the house show.
Yeah, I mean... I'm sure they won't. No, I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, it's a slight shame for Roy Hodgson that it's the last game at Anfield, isn't it? But Liverpool fans don't have any good memories of him at all, really. It was just the worst 6 months to be a Liverpool fan. So, I don't really know what to say, to be honest, Guy.
Fair enough. No, I just wanted to throw that at you and see what the reaction was, and it was. I don't want to kick a 72-year-old man, like when he's leaving the club. So I'll just leave it there. But yeah, I'll try to block that period out of my life, to be honest. No, fair enough, Dave. In terms of the opposition, the 7-0 win in December at Selhurst Park, could Liverpool have handpicked a better opponent for needing a win on the final day?
I think they possibly could, to be honest, because I think, Jurgen Klopp said it in his press conference earlier, that 7-0 win was just one of those days where literally everything Liverpool hit went in, and Palace had the dangerous moments in that game. It's easy to forget. It was just a day where everything went right. I think, typically games against Palace have been quite difficult, haven't they? So, they're a team who is set up well to counter and have got real quality in those wide positions that can cause you trouble. So, Liverpool should not be taking this for granted. I just think the fact the fans are back in, and Liverpool's objective is so clear that if you win this, you're in the Champions League. I think that will be hugely helpful to them, and hopefully prevent them, falling down to any shocks or anything like that. But yeah, I think there's easier teams to face, that's for certain. Because I think only the last game against Palace at Anfield was the first game after the COVID restart. Liverpool were absolutely perfect in that game. I don't think Crystal Palace touched the ball in their box. But aside from that, Crystal Palace games at Anfield have been really tricky. So, yeah, they've got to be careful, I think, and not think that this job is done, because this is another big test, even with the fans in.
Yeah, Wilfried Zaha went off after 15 minutes in that, wasn't it? And he was their game plan in that one to try and get Liverpool on the break, but that didn't work out for them. Joe, I'll be a bit kinder and come back to you with a proper question. In terms of a side who aren't going to go down, that is their remit every season, Palace, to stay in the Premier League. A manager leaving and half a squad effectively out of contract as well. 10,000 fans inside Anfield. I'd say what I said to Lynchy. Surely it's the ideal fixture.
I don't know.
Don't be saying that.
Yeah, don't be saying that. No, don't be saying that. And there's something about Crystal Palace that just makes me feel uncomfortable. They're just, I mean, it's just like there's just a couple of experiences with Palace, isn't there? You know, like I even go back to like I remember one in like 2001. I'm sure they knocked us out the FA Cup or something. They're just something about
on the first leg of the League Cup semi-final. Didn't they?
I don't know. I just seem to have bad memories with Palace. Obviously, the 3-3, Steven Gerrard's final game, and all that. They're just spoilers, aren't they? And there was that one Allardyce one of the other year. You know, I'm not going to be counting any chickens because I think they'll make life different. You know.
He's back. He's back.
Sorry, I can't remember what it is. But anyway, they're the sort of team that make life difficult for you. You've got two very good wingers and can hit you on the break. And, you know, Christian Benteke suddenly decided to start scoring again, which is good for Liverpool. So
he loves to visit Anfield as well, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. So don't you start with all that, Guy. Just you be quiet till Monday and then we can act like we were never worried.
No, exactly. All right, let's get into our team selection then. Alisson in goal. Hopefully he's not needed up for another corner. Gorsty, back four, same as it was at Burnley and at West Brom?
Yeah, I don't think there's any choices there. I mean, Simicast come on the other night for a rare run out. Finally, nobody looks like. But yeah, I mean, you can't really start changing the back four at this point, can you?
No, okay. Joe, what about the midfield?
Well, I'd be just going for Fabinho, Thiago, Wijnaldum. I think, Wijnaldum will have something to prove his final game. Thiago's been great, and Fabinho is a automatic starter, isn't he? So yeah,
looks so. This might be the quickest team selection of the whole season. Lynchy, he's the forward three, or I don't know. Could Ox not play on the left? Mane's still looking shot of confidence, and he did come off the bench and score the other night.
No, guys, I can't see it. I think it is. It's a team that picks itself, isn't it? You know, all season Jurgen Klopp's been trying to find some level of consistency, and it's just sort of fell into his lap in these last few games. I think he won't want to break that up for anything. Maybe, you know, Oxlade-Chamberlain getting that goal, that might be nice. Just going into the last 10 minutes if you need a goal, but let's hope it doesn't come to that.
Okay, man for the big occasion. Divock Origi might well be needed off the bench, but we'll have to wait and see. Right, in terms of match results, then, and top four predictions, Liverpool going to make it, and what's the score going to be? Gorsty?
Do you know what? Right, Joe's just been giving it the big, oh no, it's Palace shtick, but I think that's just massive kind of
crying it in
perception, isn't it? Liverpool beat them 7-0 earlier this season, and they've got a great record against them. They did win in April 2017, but different Liverpool team. With 10,000 fans inside Anfield, I think this would be fairly routine. And I think Liverpool are going to win by 3 or 4, to be honest.
So Leicester would have to win by 7 or 8. Then, Joe, what about yourself?
3-1 Liverpool for all that. Before, you know, I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh, Palace are crap, we'll easy win," because I don't think that's the case. But you know, like, you've still got to fancy Liverpool. They're still at home, and yeah, they've got 10,000 fans behind them, and you know, there's been a real momentum about them. But I still think Palace are. They've spoiled. I get what you mean, Gorsty, but they've spoiled on big occasions, haven't they? You know, the 3-3, and then you know that 2-1. I remember them feeling like a bit of momentum, and and I don't know, the Gerrard game as well really left a bad taste. You know, even though Liverpool were awful that season, they went a goal up, and so that's I suppose where that comes from. But yeah, you still got to fancy Liverpool in this.
Yeah, Lynchy.
Yeah, I think there's so much more quality, isn't it, in this Liverpool team than the ones that have sort of suffered those disappointments against Palace in the past. So, and I think if Palace were to win, they would need to capitalise on every single mistake that Liverpool made, really. You know, particularly with the fans in, just giving that extra little boost and the players knowing what's at stake. So, yeah, I think 3-0, and I also think Leicester are gonna lose as well. So it's going to be comfortable in the end.
And Chelsea are going to lose. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, why not? Imagine if you finish third.
Considering how the season's gone.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule anything out the way this season has gone. But anyway, that's it from us for this edition of the Blood Red podcast. We'll be back on Monday, of course, with all the reaction from Anfield. In the meantime, stick across everything on Sunday afternoon across on the Liverpool Echo website, and we'll have plenty of content for you to come here too on Blood Red. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Paul Gorst, Joe Rimmer and David Lynch, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.
This is the Blood Red podcast.